To help shorten things, this is now part 3 of section 3.1, where we're going to go through some story problems and also some more of the equations for surface area and so forth. So our first example is starting with a cone. We were given a surface area of 333 inches squared and a radius of 8 inches. Find the missing variable. In our case, the surface area for a cone, I've already written it for us. If you need help, go to your exam 2 formula sheet, and it's pi RL plus pi r squared. So what the missing variable is L. So we're going to plug in everything that we know already into this equation or the formula. I know the surface area they gave us is 333. I was also given the radius. The radius is 8. And we want to find the missing variable, which in this case is L. So L is attached to this 8 and this pi, so I'm not going to worry about that yet. I'm going to work with this side, which doesn't have it. So I need to do pi times 8 squared. 8 squared on my calculator. Here's my squared. If you don't have that, you can use your caret button, raise it to the 2. Or if you just have a scientific calculator, some of you will have a button that has a y to the x. That's also your exponent button. So I have that. Then I need to times it by pi, which is over here, and I get 201. Some of you don't want to use a calculator, and you can feel free to use Microsoft Excel. To get it to calculate like a calculator, you press equals, and then I'm going to type in pi, open and close parentheses. Now in this one I have to tell it to times the calculator. You don't have to do the times. And then I need 8 squared. 8, then shift 6 for the caret, raise it to the 2, and I get 201, which was the same thing as the calculator. Okay, and then I have my next step, 333. Now that is no longer 8 squared times pi. This is 201.06. So I can replace that, but I'm not going to replace it here. I'm going to come down here and subtract it. But I'm not going to subtract it as 8 squared pi. I'm going to go ahead and subtract it as 201.06. And that equals 8 pi, or pi 8L. I'm going to copy that and bring it down. There we go. Now I just need to continue solving for L by dividing both sides by pi 8. So over here I have 201. So I'm going to do 333 minus, now the one nice thing about this graphing calculator is I can press second down here, answer. So I can subtract the answer from 333, and that way I don't have to worry about rounding mistakes yet. If you would like to go ahead and use Excel, Excel is really nice in the fact that you can just write equals 333 and subtract and cell reference your 201. So you have two different ways of doing that with the calculator and with Microsoft Excel without rounding until the very end. So now I have over here 131.93. But I still want to keep solving for L like we talked about, so we need to divide both sides by pi and 8 because it's a multiplication sign, and we need to do the opposite. I'm going to copy this and bring us to our next step. There we go. And so I'm going to divide by pi and 8. Dividing it on the right hand side will cancel. So I'm just going to move it over here and divide it on the left hand side, and using my calculator, since that's the answer, I'm just going to press divide, and I'm going to divide. I need it to divide by both pi and 8, so I'm going to do parentheses. Second, pi is over here on the caret. Pi. I don't have to do a multiplication sign on the calculator, so I'm just going to do 8 and close the parentheses so both of those are dividing. And there's my answer. And I round it to, in this case, because I decided, we're just going to round out 2 decimal places, and the answer is 5.25, and this was in inches, so this is inches equals L. You could have also used Microsoft Excel to calculate that. Using what we got here, we just need to divide that equals this cell divided by, and I do need parentheses so that both of these are divided, pi. So I'm going to type in pi for pi, open and close the parentheses, and this one I have to press times 8, close the parentheses, so that's all divided on the bottom, enter, and there we go, 5.25. Okay, let's move to the next one. I've already gotten a couple of things kind of pre-written down for us to help speed things up. A rectangular solid, we were given the surface area, and for some reason I have that there. We have a surface area of 500 yards squared, and I've written down the surface area for a rectangular solid, which if you would like, you can go to your formula sheet for exam 2. And so I've just written that down because I know that they gave me surface area. I was also given the length of 20 yards and a height of 5 yards. The missing variable from this is the width. So that's what we're looking for. Now I just need to start plugging things in. Since I already have some of this, there we go. Surface area is 500, so I'll plug that in. 2, the length is 20, and the width is, I don't have the width, so I'm going to put that in as W. Then I have 2 width, and I don't have the width, so 2 times W times the height. I do have the height, is 5. And the last I have 2 times the length, which is 20, times the height, which is 5. So I just had my terms mixed up here, and that's okay. So over here, I need to simplify things. 2 times 20 gives me 40, so I have 500 equals 40W. And then I have 2 times 5 times W, so that's going to be 10W. And then I have 2 times 20 times 5. 5 times 20 is 100, times 2 gives me 200, plus 200. Now I need to combine my W's here. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this. So I have 500 equals 40 plus 10 gives me 50W plus 200. Now I need to continue to isolate the W, so I'm going to subtract 200 from both sides. Subtracting it from the right side will cancel. Subtracting it from the left side gives me 300. 500 minus 200 is 300 equals 50W. There we go. Now I need to isolate the W, so I need to do the opposite, which is divide by 50. That will cancel out the 50s on this side. Take 300 and divide it by 50. And since I'm running out of room, we'll come up here. 300 divided by 50, that's kind of like saying 30 divided by 5, which is 6. Because 1, 0 will cancel out. If you're not comfortable with that, go ahead and use your calculator. And we'll do 300 divided by 50, which gives us 6. And on the right-hand side, 50 divided by 50 cancels, so I'm left with W. So the answer is, the width is 6, and I need to put on my units, so it's 6 yards. There we go. Let's move to the next one. We're going to start working with story problems. A triangle has a longest side that is 3 feet longer than twice the smallest side, and the medium side is 2 feet longer than the smallest. Notice how everything is referring to the smallest side? That's probably a key point here. Let's go back and reread that. A triangle has a longest side that is 3 feet longer than, oh, you already know that, we talked about the longer than something, twice the smallest side. And the medium side is 2 feet longer than the smallest side. So everything's referring to this smallest side. I'm going to go ahead and put S for small, M for medium, and L for largest or longest. Now, I don't know anything about the smallest side, except that the large and the medium are both referring to it. But it didn't give me anything to translate, so that tells me that the smallest side is going to be my variable. I'm going to put S equals, for the smallest, let's pick X for the variable. So now I can go ahead and translate the longest side and the medium side in terms of the smallest side. The longest side of my triangle is means equals. So I'm going to translate this for my longest side. Is 3 feet longer than. Longer than, bigger than, and lesser than means that I add 3 or subtract 3. I kind of reverse that so that the longer part, or the addition sign, comes before the 3. So I kind of reverse that in my head. Add 3. Then twice the smallest. Twice means to double something or multiply it by 2. So in front of this 3, that's why it's reversed, is 2 times the smallest side. Well, the smallest side I don't know, so I gave myself a variable of X. Now let's move to the next sentence. The medium side is 2 feet longer than the smallest. Is means equals. So the medium equals 2 feet longer than, that means I need to add 2 to something, is 2 feet longer than the smallest. So again, I'm going to put that in terms of the smallest, which is X. There we go. So now I've translated, using this first part, the 3 sides. The smallest side, it didn't give me anything to translate, but everything was referring to the smallest, so that was my variable. The medium side tells us that the medium side is 2 feet longer than the smallest, so I add 2 to the smallest, which is X. And the longest side, 3 feet longer than twice the smallest, is 3 plus something, which was twice the smallest, or 2x. Now let's continue. If the triangle has a perimeter, how do we find perimeter? Well, we add all the sides together. So I'm going to add small, medium, and large. The small length of the triangle is x. I need to add that to the medium, which is x plus 2. And then add that to the long, or the longest side, which is 2x plus 3. There we go. So now if I add all the sides together for the perimeter, it tells me that it should equal 97 feet. So that equals 97 feet. What are the lengths of the 3 sides? Well, the first thing we need to do is solve this equation for x. I have x plus 2x. So down here, x plus x is 2x plus another 2x gives me 4x. Now let's continue. I can combine like terms of 2 and 3, so I have 4x and add 5. That equals 97. And it looks very similar to the very first kind of problems we worked with. So I need to isolate the x by subtracting 5. So I have 4x. Subtracting 5 from the left-hand side cancels it. Subtracting it from the right-hand side, 97 minus 5, I'm going to cancel that out and give me 92. Okay, so my next step is to continue isolating the x by dividing both sides by 4, because the 4 times the x, I need to do the opposite to get rid of it. So divide by 4 and divide this by 4. And dividing the left-hand side, 4 divided by 4 is x. 92 divided by 4, if you're not comfortable doing that in your head, you can use your calculator or Excel. 92 divided by 4 gives me 23. Good! That's what I needed. So it's tempting to say that I'm done because I've solved the equation. But the question said, what are the lengths of all 3 sides? And I've only found x, which is the smallest side. So the smallest side I know is 23 feet. Okay, well that's good because the medium and the long side are in terms of the smallest side. So I can substitute 23 in for x and find the medium side. So if I put 23 plus 2, that makes the medium side 25 feet. There we go. Now the longest side. This is 2 times x plus 3. So I do 2 times x was 23. So 2 times 23, that's 46. And then add 3 gives me 49. And that would be units of feet. There we go. All 3 sides, small, medium, and large. And if I wanted to, I could double check that by adding all of those together to verify that it indeed gives me a perimeter of 97 feet. And so I could come over here and do 23 plus 25 plus 49, and it does indeed give me 97, so that's correct. Let's move to our next story problem. If a cone has a lateral surface area of 150 millimeters squared, a radius of 10 millimeters, what is the slant height of the cone? So I've already given us our formula found on your formula sheet for exam 2. And let's go ahead and substitute what I know. I have 150 for the lateral surface area equals pi, and I'm going to come up and insert a symbol, and I've used it more frequently, so it's right here. If you don't have it already in your use symbols, go to more symbols and go find your pi. So pi, and I already know that the radius is 10, but I don't know the length. And I'm going to capitalize the L so it doesn't look like a 1. Alright, now it's just a matter of solving for the L. Since I have 10 times pi times the L, I need to divide both sides by 10 and pi. So divide by 10 and pi, insert symbol pi, there we go, and divide this side by also 10 and pi. On the right hand side, the 10 and the pi will cancel out. So I'm only left with L, which is great. I've isolated the variable I wanted. And on the left hand side, I'm going to go ahead and calculate 150 divided by, now to program this into your calculator, you need to divide both by 10 and by pi. So I'm going to put a parenthesis to say divide by my 10 and my pi, and close parenthesis. There we go. And we're going to round that out to 2 decimal places because I decided. So you will go ahead and follow your instructions because I'm the one deciding the instructions. I just decided we're going to go out 2. And it's in millimeters. There we go. Okay, let's move to the next one. If a cylinder has a volume of 600 centimeters cubed and a radius of 4 centimeters, how tall is it? Okay, so here's my formula for volume of a cylinder, and I'm just going to throw what I know in there. The volume they told me is 600 equals pi times the radius is 4 centimeters, so 4 squared times h. I don't have h, so I'm going to leave it as h. There we go. Now for my next step, I'm just going to go ahead and calculate the 4 squared. So 600 equals pi, and 4 squared, 4 times 4 is 16, and I still don't know h. This looks exactly like the last one, except instead of an L I have an H, and the way to isolate it is to divide by whatever is over here, because this is being multiplied and this is being multiplied, so I need to do the opposite. Divide by pi times 16 on both sides. I'm just going to copy that and paste it over here because that's what I need to do to both sides. On this right hand side, the 16 and the pi will cancel out. So I'm only left with h, which is exactly what I needed. And on the left hand side, I'm going to come over here and use my calculator and do 600 divided by pi and 16. So I'm going to use my parentheses. Pi is second caret, 16, close my parentheses, and there we go. Rounding out 2 decimal places is 11.93 or 94, and this was being measured in centimeters. It told us the volume was centimeters cubed, so the height is also in centimeters, and there's our answer. Okay, the next story problem. If a rectangle has a length of 8 more than 3 times its width and a perimeter of 56 meters, what are the dimensions of the rectangle? Well, the first thing I did is give us the formula for perimeter, because that's something we know. And it told us the perimeter of the rectangle. So here's our formula found on exam 2 formula sheet. And I went ahead and put in some of the things that I was told. I was told that the perimeter is 56 meters. So I'm going to put 56 for perimeter. Then I need 2 times L and 2 times W. Except that I need to translate a little bit first. The rectangle has a length, so instead of L, I'm going to put in what they tell me, the length of 8 more than. More than means I need to add 8 to something. So I've done that. Add 8 more than 3 times its width. Do I know the width? No. So I'm going to use a variable to replace width. In this case, I'm going to use W just to keep it separate. So 3 times its width is 3W. Now plus 2W, I don't have anything to translate for the 2W because everything's in terms of W, and therefore I'm good right there. Okay, let's double check that. 56 was the perimeter here. If you're not comfortable doing this all at once, we could come off to the side over here and say that the length, and just translate this part. The length has, or is 8 more than, so that means I need to add 8, so it's kind of backwards, more than 3 times, that's 3 multiplied 3 times its width. And since I don't know the width, I'm going to just pick a variable. In this case, I'm going to do W to stand for width. And then we substitute this in to here for the length, which we have down here. Now we need to solve for W. So I'm going to use the distributive property to kind of break down that set of parentheses. 2 times 3 gives me 6W. And then 2 times 8 gives me 16, and now I don't have any more parentheses, plus 2w. There we go. Now I have 56 equals. On the right hand side, I can go ahead and combine those to give me 8w plus 16. And now I need to isolate the variable. So the first thing I need to do is the order of operations backwards. So I need to get rid of the 16 first because it comes at the end and then multiplication. So I'm going to subtract 16 from both sides. Subtracting it from the right side, it cancels out. Subtracting it from the left side, I get 56 minus 16. That gives me 30 equals 8w. And I just realized that I have a typo up here. This should actually be 66. So I'm going to hurry and go through and change all of these really quickly to 66. There we go. That's better. Now this is going to be 40. Okay, now I need to continue solving and isolating the w. So over here I have 8 times w. The opposite of timesing is dividing. So I'm going to divide that side by 8 and divide the left side by 8. On the right side, 8 divided by 8 cancels. On the left side, 40 divided by 8 gives me 5. 5 equals w. There we go. So that's the width. And it's very tempting just to stop right here. However, I was asked, what are the dimensions of the rectangle? So I also need to find the length. So I can come over here and I can look at the length in here, which we talked about and we translated. Or if you did it separately, you can do your substitution here. Or you can come back up to the beginning and do it right there. Whichever way works for you. So we know that 3 times the width, so I need 3 times 5, 3 times the width, and we need to add 8 will give me the length. So 3 times 5 is 15, and then I need to add 8, which gives me 23. And I need to give myself the units. This was given to me in meters, and so I'm going to put meters on my answer. And I'm going to put this over here because I'm running out of room. And there we go. We now have the dimensions for the length and the width. Let's move on to number 16. Find the missing variable for a parallelogram. I was given the area, and I need to get rid of that. The area is 148 feet squared, and I was given the height of 18.5 feet. So the missing variable here is the base. And I've given us the formula for finding area of a parallelogram. And so I'm going to substitute what I know in. The area is 148. I don't know the base, but I do know the height is 18.5. And to find the base here, there's a multiplication sign, so the opposite is to divide both sides by 18.5, keeping it balanced. On the right hand side, 18.5 divided by 18.5 cancels. On the left side, 148 divided by 18.5 gives me 8. So the answer is 8 equals B, and I do need a unit, and this was given to me in feet, so this is 8 feet, and that was the missing variable. The base of this parallelogram is 8 feet. All right, we're almost done. We have 2 more. Finding the area of the shaded region. This, if you can't see very well, this should be straight from the bottom to the top, just like your example. And so we can assume that this circle has a diameter of 5 centimeters. The rectangle has dimensions of 5 centimeters by 15 centimeters, and we want to find the area of the shaded region in here. So the first thing we want to do is find the area for the entire rectangle, and then we need to subtract the area of the circle. I've already given us the formulas for area of circle and area of a triangle. So the first thing we want to do is area of the triangle or of the rectangle, and that's length times width. Area equals 5 times 15, which gives me 5 times 15, 75, and this is in centimeters squared. I'm not going to worry about those dimensions quite yet, but if you would like to, you can go ahead and put it in your notes. Then I need to find the area of the circle, pi r squared. Area equals pi. I'm going to insert my symbol of pi and then r, which I know because the diameter is 5 centimeters. The radius is half of that. 5 divided by 2 is 2.5. 2.5, and then I need to square it. So I'm going to come over to my calculator and do 2.5. I can either do the caret and raise it to the 2, or I can use my squared button here, and then times this by pi gives me this. Then I need to subtract that from 75 because I want only the shaded region. So I'm going to write 75 subtract. I'm not going to round now. I'm going to subtract second answer here and press enter. That gives me 55.37. So 75, and I'm going to show that I'm subtracting the circle, which is pi r squared, or 2.5 squared. Copy and paste that here, and that equals 55.37. And this is centimeters squared because I'm talking about area, and that's the answer. To do this with Excel, you can do it the exact same thing, but using Excel. And here I would do equals 5 times 15. Then the area of the circle was pi r squared. So I'd do equals to calculate pi, open and close your parentheses, times 2.5, shift 6 to raise it to the power of a 2. And that gives me the area of the circle. Then the next step, I would do equals and cell reference the rectangle and subtract, cell reference the area for the circle, and there we go that way. So you have lots of different ways to do your calculations, and that's our answer. Okay, the next one is just backwards of what we've done here. So I need to find the area of the circle first. And I'm just going to copy and paste this to save us some time. There we go. And I just need to figure out the radius. Here I have a dimension showing that the diameter of the circle is 16 inches. So to find the radius, I need to cut that in half. Half of 16 is 8. Okay, so that's how I'll find the area of the circle. So I'll come over here and I'll do equals 8 shift 6 squared. I have to tell it to times pi, open and close parentheses. Now some of you are thinking I just put in pi at the end when it should have gone at the first, but multiplication is commutative, not an n, not commutative, it's commutative. Commutative meaning that I can multiply in any direction. And there we go, that's the area of the circle, and I'm going to write 201.06. Now I'm not going to calculate it as 0.06 because that's not quite as accurate as I need it to be. All right, so my next job is to find the area of, of this rectangle, almost square. To find the area of that, I need to do length times width, which is 4 times 6. 4 times 6 is 24. 24. And I need to subtract that from the circle. So I'm going to come up here and I can do equals 24, or I can calculate the 24. As long as I do my circle area, subtract the rectangular area, and that gives me, I'm going to come up here and do equals, minus 24 equals 177.06. And this is being measured in inches, and because I'm dealing with area, I need to do inches squared for the units, and there's my answer. If you have any questions on this, go ahead and email me, write me some questions. Good luck on your homework.